Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the Tuesday, May 10th, 2016 Committee of the Whole meeting to order. It's approximately 5:58 p.m. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Roth?
Here.
Councilman Burgess?
Here.
Councilman Shelley?
Here.
Mayor Porter?
Here. Any additions, deletions, deferrals? Mr. Manager? Mr. Attorney, nothing?
No, sir.
If there's no objection from the council, we've got a lot of people here from the last item, which I think is item 10, which is the discussion on the grant, not-for-profit grants. Is anyone opposed to bringing that forward? No? Okay. So let's go to tab 10 if we could. So who's got this one, Mr. Manager?
We're going to, Carlos, why don't you start us off? Okay.
Hang on, Carlos. Okay, Carlos.
Is it on? It's on? You're good.
Good evening. Staff is seeking direction regarding the proposed CDBG grant awards for the upcoming CDBG fiscal year 2016-2017 action plan. CDBG grant applicants for the 2016-17 have been reviewed and scored. Copies of the scoring sheets and proposed awards are attached as Exhibits 1, 3, and 4. Final approval for the grant awards will be made as part of the CDBG 2016-17 action plan to be brought before Council for approval at the June Committee of the Whole meeting. The action plan must be submitted to HUD by mid-August. In the past, staff has presented its grant award recommendations before Council as part of the CDBG action plan that must be approved by HUD by mid-August. This year, we are implementing a two-step process. One, presenting proposed nonprofit grant awards for Council discussion and direction, and two, presenting final action plan to Council in June, including grant awards discussed at this May Committee of the Whole meeting. This year's request for grant funds totaled over $1 million, while funds available for grant awards are only $355,661. The notice of funding availability was published on March 11th and 13th. Nonprofits in the Finance Department database were contacted via email and U.S. mail. A total of 19 people attended workshops that took place in March and April at the William Dickinson Community Center. We did invite those that are scheduled for proposed grant awards to be in attendance in case there's any questions from any of the council members as to their projects or public service that they're planning on providing.
Carlos, can you, I mean, it's kind of small. Can you can you say for the record who's getting what, if you don't mind?
Yes, sir. Okay. Under public services, which we have limited it, the HUD requirements or guidelines allow us not to exceed more than 15% of the year's allocation. So that one's very limited. We have Start Off Smart, a summer program at the PAL Gym. The request is for $27,287. We're proposing funding $24,287. The YMCA has a drowning prevention program. The request is for $39,410. The proposed funding is for the entire amount. The Homestead Soup Kitchen has for expanded meal service and operations. The request is for $49,640, and the proposed funding is for $49,640. I'm going to jump down to the public facility applications. We have New Hope Corp's facility improvements to their kitchen and dining areas. The request is for $44,324. The proposed funding is for the same amount. Miami Bridge Youth and Family Services have several facility improvements. The request is for $60,000. The proposed funding is for the same amount. Sunrise Community has a request for roof replacement at the Homestead facility. The request was for $140,000 for a metal roof. Our recommendation is for $67,000 proposed funding that they can either use as a match for a metal roof or a different type of roof that they can get for their establishment. And again, those basically total up to the $355,661.
Housing Authority.
I'm sorry?
Housing Authority.
Homestead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. I did miss one. The Homestead Housing Authority, window replacements at their South Aid Farm labor camp. The request is for $100,000 and the proposed funding is for $71,000.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from council? Mr. Roth. Mr. Roth?
Thank you. Just a question of when you have the request and then the proposed, how do you come up with that proposed number when it's less than what the requested amount was?
Well, specifically in the Smart Off Smart, I think that the Start Off Smart, I think the difference is for the costs were for certain administrative costs that we weren't going to fund. So that was the reason for the reduction there. The other one that again was of significant amounts were the Sunrise community for the roof. As I stated, they had we're making a request for a metal roof, which is very expensive. We're able to fund $67,000 that they can use either as a match, and they can find other funding for the metal roof, or they can maybe fund a shingle roof. With the Homestead Housing Authority, it's just a reduction because we would have run out of money, and since that one was probably rated the lowest down in the public facilities, it's a number of windows that can be funded. Is that correct?
Okay. And then the ones that actually don't get selected to receive anything, how did that get determined?
It basically, we had a committee of 3 members who evaluated all their applications on certain items, and the sheets, the scoring sheets are attached. It shows you what the different categories were and how they were rated. So pretty much you rank them, and then you start trying to fund it at some point. If they're below the line, they're not going to get funded.
Thank you.
All right, sir, thank you. Mr. Burgess.
Thank you, Mayor. Carlos, I noticed in some of the comments, and I appreciate the people putting the comments in there for us that, that don't go through everything. Some of the comments were negative, yet the people are still getting money. Like there wasn't accountability, I think, under one of the projects, and I'm not going to name people, and people were behind on projects and stuff like that. So what do we do to hold them accountable for when we give them this money, to make sure it's used properly, to make sure that things are taken care of that we're giving them the money for it? What do we have in place to verify this or to make sure things are done
I'm going to
properly?
defer to our consultant Calvin Knows with Government Services Group. He sat on the panel and is very familiar with all the HUD guidelines.
Hi, Calvin Knowles with Government Services Group. You're correct. There are some people that we did have negative comments about their specific projects, but we still had a lot of faith in the organizations. And there's different reasons that they're behind, and every project is different. And we've had some projects that were simply not budgeted correctly, and that's sometimes not anyone's fault. It just, things came in too expensive. Other projects experienced delays. And sometimes it's because the program wasn't well thought out, or maybe the public facility improvement wasn't well planned. But
What do we do to improve that end of it for them? Is there a way to help them so that when these projects come to us, that they're carried out and they're not ill-advised or ill-planned plans, or what do we do to help them with these things? Is there a process that we can help so that we make sure that these monies are used as they're allocated and swiftly to take care of the problems?
yes, sir, honestly, the best process is simply communication. And we've tried to get at that with the pre-application workshops we've had, where we had a seminar on how to complete the application. But more than that, it's communicating with them, trying to get them to understand that what they submit needs to be as detailed and as accurate as possible. Sometimes it's not anyone's fault. Sometimes things are just a lot more expensive than you think they're going to be. But other times...
So they don't have to bring in a professional quote for a job, or they can come in with a guesstimate?
Usually what happens with capital construction in particular is often a board member will be a construction professional, or they'll have friends in the community that are construction professionals, and they'll rely on those contacts to come up with an estimate. Most of the time the estimates are pretty good, but not all the time. And as you are aware, a lot of these facilities are quite old and in need of repairs. So often when you get in there, this happens quite a bit, when you get in there and you have this big ambitious plan and you find out 50% of the roof decking is gone and nobody knew that, suddenly the roof becomes the thing you've got to do, and you can't do the kitchen or you can't do the flooring. So honestly, it's quite difficult sometimes, especially with these older facilities.
Well, I don't know if it's possible, but I agree with what we're going to do here tonight. But I also disagree with the fact that we have people that don't get projects done. And I think that maybe, I don't know if it's allowed through the process or not, but that they need to come in with a professional opinion or estimate, excuse me, of what it's going to cost instead of a guesstimate, because you know, that's great that we all have friends out there and will come by our house and tell us it's going to be one price, but when we go to do it, if it's 2 times as much or an unforeseen problem in there, and the problem doesn't get done, and half of the and they've spent 3/4 of the money, and now it's wasted because they can't finish the product, and maybe rot sets in or something, and then it just keeps going on and on. So I don't know if it's possible, but if we're going to be doing building projects, I'd like to see professional estimates come in from people, if that's at all allowable through the grant process. I think it would just help us in the long run of not running into these problems of them not maybe getting a thorough inspection on a roof, just using a roof as an example, or windows, whatever it would be, and not finding the rot that might be in the wall or in the ceiling in a beam or something. So I don't know if it's possible, but I would certainly like to see that in the future, especially if we're going to be doing construction projects.
Okay, that's something we can look into, certainly.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Sir, thank you, sir. Is the question Mr. Burgess is referring to is previous history with how they use the grants? Is that part? I didn't really read that was part of the analysis. Is that part of what you would consider?
Absolutely it is, because in some cases we have organizations which are very good at what they're doing, but they have a lot of projects on deck, and again, for various reasons. But, you know, we're not going to pile on, you know, yet more funding when we haven't finished the projects we've already got, so.
Sorry. Okay, well, that's good. That's good, thank you. Any other discussion from council? Any questions from council? Mr. Manager, what do you need from us?
Basically, it's direction. If you have no objections to what we've presented to you tonight, then basically when we come with the action plan to you, probably at the June meeting, these will be in there as the allocations that's presented to you tonight.
I don't see
Need a motion to approve this item.
Okay.
I got one more question.
Mr. Burgess.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. On some of these projects, we're only giving them, like on the Housing Authority, they asked for 100 and they're getting 71. Are they able to do what needs to be done with that? Or is it something that, they're only going to get 3/4 of the way done with the project, or?
Yeah, so they're not going to be able to do the entire project, but the project was intended to replace windows, so they're just going to replace as many windows as they can, and then they'll have to stop.
And on the roof project, we're giving them less than 50% of what's asked for, basically right at around 50%. So
Right.
What happens there?
Well, I encourage them, I encourage them, I said, give me a quote on what you really want, and then we'll see what we can do. And so they got a very good quote on a metal roof, and it was a very high quality commercial metal roof like you would see on, a restaurant or a commercial building. And those, as you know, are quite expensive. So we looked at that, and then we looked at all of the funding we had, and we thought, well, what would an asphalt roof cost? And so I called them and spoke to them and said, would you be able to work with this if we funded an asphalt roof instead of a metal roof? And they said, okay. And they had some matching funding involved as well of about $20,000. So $87,000 would put a new asphalt shingle roof on that facility on Chrome. And if they're successful with this effort, they're actually going to try to go ahead and fund a metal roof and try to get money from somewhere else to get a higher quality roof.
Now, when we give them this money, do we put time constraints on when it's to be used by? Or can they bank it and try again over and over?
No banking.
Making sure for the public's knowledge.
No banking. They need to use it as soon as it's feasible to use it. It needs to be used.
Specifically for what it's intended for.
Specifically for what it's intended. Now, I do encourage people when they submit for rehabilitations of these older facilities that they include a number of things So, as I say, if we get in there and the roof is much worse than another element, that there's some flexibility to move around there. But with this specific example, it's a large one-story facility. They need a roof. The roof is in bad shape. We know the roof is going to be very expensive. There's no reason to put anything else in there. And you may recall we funded a prior activity with this facility to install new kitchens, and we just did that last year. So,
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, sir. Any other discussion? Is there a motion to approve? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Carlos. Let's go back to tab 1. It's the approval of the committee of the whole minutes. Is there a motion?
Move them.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Tab 2. Mr. Manager. Tab 2.
Mayor, several city departments through fleet and procurement have determined that the attached list of vehicles have outlived their usefulness and are no longer adequate for their intended purpose. Other items listed have become obsolete and are no longer needed for public purposes. Due to the fact that it is no longer cost-effective to keep these vehicles and items in operation, the city will auction them off as surplus. Staff recommends Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution and authorize the city manager to surplus the attached list of vehicles and miscellaneous items that will be sold by means of online auction or disposed of by other authorized purposes. This is in accordance with the City of Homestead Code, Section 2-440, surplus property.
Questions from council? Is there a motion?
Move it.
Is there a second? Any other questions? Any concerns, comments? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Tab 3.
Mayor, Univision is requesting the mayor and council authorize the city manager to approve a waiver of usage fees in the amount of $2,889 for the use of William F. Bill Dickinson Community Center to host a health fair on June 17th and 18th, 2016. The Univision Health Fair will be free to the public and will provide free health screenings, information, and valuable resources to the City of Homestead's residents.
Questions from council? Mr. Burgess?
Thank you. Mr. Maytan, can you just tell us briefly what the $2,800, almost $2,900 exactly covers over there?
Councilman Burgess, that's going to cover the 2 days of the banquet hall, and they're also using the 2 days of the health room. So what that equals is $2,800, sir.
Okay. I'm in favor. It's going to be something, I believe, that's going to be good for our citizens. Free health screening is something that everybody can use, so I'm in favor for it. I just wanted to see exactly what it covered over there. So,
Yes, sir.
thank you, Mayor.
Sir, have we done this before, Dennis?
We done health fairs before, but not with Univision, sir.
So this is the first time they've applied.
Yes, sir.
So where have they been done in the past, the previous health fairs?
We had it from different organizations that ran health cares at FICA Williams and the community center, but this is Univision's first time using the community center, sir.
So probably waived the fees in the past as well.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions? Any other comments? Is there a motion?
Move it.
Moved and seconded. Final comments? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Tab 4.
Mayor, Homestead Hospital is requesting the mayor and council authorize the city manager to approve waiver of usage fees in the amount of $400 for the use of FICA Williams Community Center on June 15th and September 21st, 2016. The event will be a private retreat for hospital leadership.
Questions? Mr. Shelley.
I remember they came to us last year for a similar request. And I remember I had similar concerns where, because of the way it was worded, it seemed like it was, not exactly a community-related event. I think at the time, I think Bill actually came and spoke, and I recall that they were doing planning for community activities or something to that effect. Because I remember, I think I went along with it last year. But do we have any clarity for this year? Is there anyone here that can clarify what this actually is?
Yeah, Councilman, my understanding is that this is they do similar to what we do with our department heads. They get together now and then and they strategize for the year. And our thinking on this was that since the hospital provides so much service to the citizens of the city, that utilizing our facility would be something that would have a public benefit.
Yeah, and I agree with all of that, but that's why the way it's written here is not giving us any type of ability to say that's what it's for. And I remember last year, I think I asked Bill the same thing, the CEO, and yeah, and so it doesn't specify what it actually meant. It just said it was a retreat for leadership. But my understanding was that it was for planning for events to help become, continue to do benefits for the community, which I'm okay with, but I just want to make sure that was clear for the record.
Yes,
Yeah, thank you.
that is.
And if there's some question, I'd be willing to help fund if there's any, this is in that gray area for someone. I mean, the hospital is an absolute huge partner for this community. If we need to pay for this, okay.
Yeah, no, it was just all wanted to be on the record because the way it's worded, it looks like it's a retreat, and then it gets into the whole, someone asked questions about it, but with the manager's comments, it reinforces what happened last year. I'm okay with it.
And I think their wording for private, staff just wanted to make it clear that it's not a public event. On the other hand, because they're a public institution and provides the service, for us, there's the public purpose involved.
Correct.
No doubt. Anything else from council? Is there a motion? Move it. Is there a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Tab 5.
Mayor, Parks and Recreation put out an RFI to seek firms to conduct a feasibility study for the Homestead Sports Complex. All the respondents were brought in for interview presentations. We're narrowed down to 2 firms, then 1. ACOM submitted a proposal in response to the RFI for consultant services to complete a reuse feasibility study for the Homestead Sports Complex. The scope of work will include project planning, market analysis, stakeholder interviews, facility recommendations, conceptual site plans, cost estimates, functional analysis, and a final report. Staff recommends the mayor and council approve the attached resolution and authorize the city manager to accept the proposal for consultant services from ACOM to complete a reuse feasibility study. Cost for the work is $50,000.
Questions from council? Mr. Burgess, you have a question? Go ahead.
Beat me to the punch.
I got you first.
Through the mayor and through the manager to Mr. Maytan, don't we have didn't we do a master plan over there within the last so many years of the park?
Councilman Burgess, we did our Parks Master Plan in 2007, and it's already been complete. Parks and Rec would probably be looking at redoing a master plan and look at what our future would be now since we're growing. But right now, our master plan is up to 90,000 residents, so we're above what we're supposed to be. To answer that question, the sports complex was supposed to be a sports complex in the master plan,
Okay.
which the council brought up a couple council meetings back, that they want to see what we can do now, since now it's going to be empty after the police.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that, we're clear that we have done something in the past that reflected a smaller city than what we are now, and didn't have the building facility built up to where we are today that might be a more feasible use for somebody to come in and use.
And if I could also emphasize here, at some point, this process will drive some decisions in terms of, do you want to sell the facility? Do you want to lease the facility? Do you want to use it as a public park or facility? And so what their consultants will be asked to do is, for those options also, hopefully attach some cost to that as well, so that you'll have an understanding of, okay, let's assume you say, geez, we want this to be a giant park. What can we estimate something like that would cost? And also, as they get your feedback, if you said, oh, we want this to be a giant park, what kind of activities, what kind of facilities, those kind of things. If you said, we just want to sell it, then we're going to ask the questions, do you want to sell it for the highest price, highest and best use? You want to sell it with an attachment of a specific activity? Those kind of things. And we've had several people come in expressing interest, either buy or to lease, or do some sort of a partnership. And then we've had certain people say, well, geez, we'd like to have this be a city facility. So all of that will be, I think, a good, there'll be a lot of information for you all to make some decisions.
Will this study include ways then, if the city was to keep it, to generate revenue out there through their
Yes, they're going to be looking at all things, including some sort of a partnership. So it could be a hybrid of public and private. It could be if it's going to be a public park, for example, what kind of revenues can you generate that will offset some of the costs? So there's a whole slew of ways to look at it. We had somebody that spoke to us a couple of weeks about making that a water park, but as a private facility. So there's all kinds of things that you can think about because of the land, and then also the other piece to the puzzle is about half the property is in the crash zone, so that also limits certain activities as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Just wanted to add, the company had another agenda they had to attend, so they'll be here Wednesday at the council meeting if you have any questions or any kind of, areas you want them to touch, and they can tell you about their company. But one reason why we did pick them is that their vision was just not sports. Their vision was attractions and all that other stuff. So we thought that was very important, not just to zone in one thing. And they do have a very good background. So I just want to bring that up.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess. Mr. Shelley?
Similar questions, and that was just to kind of say that this process is kind of figure out what is the best use and look outside the box, and not necessarily where we look at it as a sports complex or a baseball stadium, but find out what is the best use of that land as a whole, building-wise, land-wise.
Yes.
And similar to what we did with the iconic attraction, and that we bring somebody in with a creative that has history and has a record and can come up and figure out what they think is best with our input, and through this process then ultimately come up with a couple options that we can choose, and hopefully come up with a good product that makes sense for the city. And then also just to point out, this was a budgeted item. I know at least last budget, maybe not this one, but the last budget, and it was carried over. It rolled over. And so
Yes,
it is something we already had in the budget. We're just now putting to use.
Yes, it was budgeted. You guys, the council voted to put $50,000 for the study, which we rolled over.
Right.
So we got it.
Perfect. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think it's a great exercise. I just, hopefully we don't just always talk about selling it, because that's always been the thing that's, every time we've needed it, it's been there. And if we'd sold it, we'd be trying to look for property to buy someplace else at a much higher value. So I think this is a great exercise for us to get some ideas on the table. So any other questions? Is there a motion? Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Tab 6.
Florida Department of State, through the Division of Cultural Affairs, provides financial support for the renovation, construction, and acquisition of cultural community facilities. The match requirement is a 1-to-2 match. The required match may be partial in the form of cash and expenditures incurred at the project site during the 5 years prior to the application deadline of June 1st, 2016, and up to $50,000 of match can be in-kind services. Staff recommends Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to submit a grant application to the Division of Cultural Affairs Facilities Program requesting a grant of up to $500,000 for Losner Park. This grant requires a match amount of $1 million. The city will use impact fees to match the grant. One other thing I'd like to add is you're going to see more and more of these on as we're trying to find, we're kind of going through every bin we can to find cash, and so this is a fairly substantial project, so we're going to need a lot more than this amount, but we have to start someplace.
Questions from council? Is there a motion? Is there a second? Moving second, all in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Tab 7.
Mayor, it's the city's desire to continue its trolley service to residents within the city and enter into an agreement with Limousines of South Florida to provide operation and maintenance of city trolleys in accordance with the terms and condition of RFP number 201611. The cost under this agreement for operation and maintenance is at a rate of $62.10 per hour per trolley. The estimated annual expense of $688,565 is funded by the People Transportation Plan. Staff recommends Mayor and Council approve the award to Limousines of South Florida at a rate of $62.10 per hour per trolley for the maintenance and operation of the city trolley. Estimated expense will be funded $688,565.
Questions from council? Mr. Burgess.
I just wanted to say, all accounts that I have is that this company that's here with us now, Limousines of South Florida, and who's recommended tonight, has done an outstanding job for the trolleys. I know that Councilman Shelley has put him through the ringer over there on his park stuff, but the people that I talk to say that they do a good job. The things are kept, the trolleys are kept clean, and for the most part on time. The one question I do have is, and it's not really relevant, but we got to make sure we do the study on the stops, Mr. Brea. I haven't gotten a report back on those yet that we talked about. So if we could do a follow-up on them, maybe at the next meeting or something.
Just as a clarification, the budget that we're putting here takes into account adding some additional trolleys to our routes that we don't have yet. So that takes into account the improvement of the program.
Okay. Thank you. I'm in support of this company continuing on with their contract, so thank you.
All right, sir. Any other questions from council? Is there a motion? Tab 7? Second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Tab 8?
Mayor, staff recommends the mayor and council approve the attached resolution authorizing city manager to enter an agreement with the law firm of Greenberg Traurig to act as the city's disclosure counsel and tax consultant for a possible transportation tax revenue bond issuance. Estimated fees are $49,000 to $71,500, depending on how the bonds are issued, and the fees will be paid as bond issuance costs from any bond proceeds. Staff is finalizing cost estimates and probable funding sources for the multimodal downtown transit center. As part of due diligence in creating these estimates, staff is engaging necessary services from various vendors. Once the analysis is complete, staff will present council with a cost and financing package for its approval. Also, one note on this particular project, will be again down at the county on Thursday at the People's Transportation Plan Board in order to get final sign-off on the current iteration of the plan, which is somewhat of a work in progress, but we're also getting pretty close to having all the funding sources secured.
This is the parking garage downtown Intermobile. When this, and the funding for this is secured through PTP dollars?
Yes.
So,
Mr. Mayor, just would add that Jeff DiCarlo, who you know, we usually do most of this work, but this is very specialized tax work and also disclosure council work. Albert De Castillo is here, who some of you may recognize has been of assistance to the city as long as I've been here. You may have seen him on the back page of the Daily Business Review. He just finished a $1 billion deal for hurricane bonds for, I guess, Puerto Rico. So we're glad that Albert can help out here. And I've told him that they're not permitted to say anything and that they don't need to show up in the next meeting unless the council wants them there.
it's fine with us. Any other questions from council? Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Tab 9.
Mayor, it's similar on the same issue. The project is the evaluation committee met to rank the respondents to RFQ 201622 Architecture and Engineering Services for a parking garage. Top ranked firms are in descending order as listed. Upon successful negotiations with the most qualified and highest ranked firms that is able to meet the city's requirements, the city manager or his designee will then proceed with entering into an agreement with the selected firm that will be brought to city council for approval. The evaluation committee recommends ranking of the top 3 firms: Rodriguez and Caroga Architects Chartered, BEA Architects, Tim Huss and Associates, Inc. Staff is finalizing cost estimates and probable funding sources for the multimodal downtown transit center, and this is also part of our due diligence process.
Questions from council? Is there a motion? Is there a second? I'll second it. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Motion carries. We're back to tab 10 again. Rick. Any other questions, discussions from staff, anything from the council? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Nice short meeting.